Hey everyone, ready to dive in. Today we're tackling something that seems simple on the surface but gets super complex quickly. Equality.
It's one of those ideas everyone thinks they understand, right?
Yeah,
But when you really start to ask, equality of what, things get interesting.
exactly. And that's why we're taking a deep dive into the work of Amartya Sen, brilliant economist and philosopher.
Specifically, his 1979 lecture at Stanford, Equality of What? Even the title makes you stop and think.
Right, like it's not just about making everything the same, there's more to it.
Way more. Sen argues that a lot of common approaches to equality, they're focused on the wrong things.
Like what? Give us an example.
Well, think of it this way. You're trying to divide a cake fairly. What comes to mind first?
I mean, probably making sure everyone gets
Yeah.
the same slice, right? It seems
Yeah.
fair.
Exactly. And that's what a lot of theories go for. Equal distribution of resources or happiness, things like that.
But Sen says not so fast.
Yeah, he'd be like, hold on. Why are we so obsessed with the slice itself? What matters is what people can do with it.
Ooh, okay, so it's not about the cake, but what the cake enables. I like where this is going.
Exactly. But before we get into Sen's solution, let's unpack why some of the usual suspects fall short.
Yeah, let's do it. What's first on the chopping block?
Let's start with utilitarianism, the classic greatest happiness for the greatest number idea.
Okay, so in our cake analogy, that would be like trying to please the most people at a party, even if it means some get tiny slivers.
Pretty much. Maximize that total happiness, even if the slices are uneven. But here's where Sen throws in a curveball.
Hit me with it.
He's like, what about people who experience joy differently?
Yep.
Some folks get over the moon for a bite of cake.
Others, not so much.
Right. And to make his point, he uses this example, and forgive the outdated language of a cripple and a pleasure wizard.
Okay, this could be good.
So the pleasure wizard, they squeeze out maximum joy from every crumb. The cripple, less so. Utilitarianism might say, give it all to the wizard.
Just because they're more efficient at being happy, that seems kind of harsh.
Right. It ignores that people have different needs and capacities for experiencing well-being.
Oh.
And Sen's not cool with that.
So what about aiming for everyone to have the same amount of happiness, regardless of how much cake they need to get there?
Sen tackles that too. He calls it total utility equality. But he argues it's still missing something, which it overlooks how intensely people experience things and how much support they might need to reach a certain level of well-being.
I see. So even if everyone scores a 7 out of 10 on the happiness scale, it doesn't tell us the whole story.
Exactly. Sen uses this thought experiment. Imagine one person ecstatic, a 10 out of 10, while another is just blah, a 1.
Oh, okay, I'm picturing it.
Then imagine both at a moderate level of contentment, say a 3. Total utility would prefer the second scenario.
Because everyone's equal, even if it's kind of meh all around.
Right. But intuitively, doesn't that first scenario, with at least one person super happy, seem better?
Yeah, it feels wrong to hold someone back from intense joy just because someone else can't experience it the same way.
Exactly. So we've got utilitarianism, total utility, both found wanting. What about John Rawls and his primary goods idea?
Yes, Rawls. Big name in philosophy. How does he fit into this cake conundrum?
So Rawls is all about creating a just society, one we'd design, if we didn't know our place in it beforehand.
Like we're behind a veil of ignorance, no idea if we'll be rich or poor, healthy or not.
Exactly. And he says in that scenario, we'd focus on distributing primary goods equally.
Primary goods being?
Things like liberty, opportunity, income, the building blocks of a good life, right?
Makes sense. Give everyone an equal starting point.
Right. But Sen argues that even this approach is still too fixated on the things themselves.
Not on what those things allow people to actually do.
Exactly. He calls this fetishism, treating resources as inherently valuable, rather than valuing what they enable people to achieve.
Fetishism. Wow. Okay, strong word. So giving everyone the same slice of cake doesn't guarantee they can bake something amazing with it.
Exactly. Some folks might need a different kind of oven or some baking lessons.
Yeah.
It's about more than just the ingredients.
So not just equal tools, but an equal ability to actually use those tools to bake a good life.
And now you're getting it. And this is where Sen introduces his big idea, basic capability equality.
All right, finally, the main course. Tell me more. What is basic capability equality all about? Okay, basic capability equality. It's about making sure everyone has the ability to actually do certain things, not just having the same stuff as everyone else.
Right. And those things, Sen calls them basic capabilities. Things like having good nutrition, access to healthcare, being able to move freely.
Participating in society without facing discrimination.
All of that It's about creating a world where everyone has the opportunity to live a fulfilling life, no matter what.
So in our cake analogy, it's not just about giving everyone the same slice, it's about making sure they can actually bake something delicious with it.
Exactly. Some people might need a different kind of oven or some baking lessons to really thrive.
It's about recognizing that we all have different needs and abilities when it comes to turning resources into well-being.
Absolutely. And that's a huge departure from the more traditional ways of thinking about equality.
It really makes you question those standard measures like GDP, doesn't it? Like, are those really capturing what matters most?
Right. Sen would say they're missing a huge part of the picture. It's not just about how much wealth we have as a society, but what that wealth enables people to actually do and be.
Are people able to live lives they value? Are they free from illness? Can they participate fully in their communities? Those are the questions we should be asking.
Exactly. And those questions have huge implications for how we design policies, how we distribute resources, how we interact with each other even.
It's like a whole new framework for thinking about social justice.
It is. Think about disability rights, for example. A purely resource-based approach might say, well, we've provided everyone with wheelchairs, so we've achieved equality.
But a capability approach would ask, can people in wheelchairs actually access buildings? Can they get around easily? Can they participate fully in society?
Right. It's not just about giving everyone the same tools. It's about making sure those tools are actually useful in their lives.
It completely changes how we even define the problems in the first place, doesn't it?
It does. Take education for another example. A capability approach wouldn't just measure how many years of schooling people have.
It would look at whether they're actually equipped with the skills and knowledge they need to navigate the world.
Exactly. Do they have the critical thinking skills to sift through information? Can they communicate effectively? Can they adapt to new situations?
It's about empowering people to be lifelong learners, not just handing them a textbook and calling it a day.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
And you can see how this framework applies to so many different areas, right?
Absolutely. Like healthcare, for example.
Right.
How would a focus on basic capabilities change how we think about healthcare? So we were just talking about healthcare before the break, and I'm really curious to dig into how this idea of basic capability equality could shake things up in that area.
Yeah, healthcare is a great example of where Sen's ideas could make a real difference. Because it's not just about providing medical services, right?
Right. It's about enabling people to actually be healthy, to make choices that support their well-being.
Exactly. A capability-centered approach would ask, do people have the knowledge they need to make healthy choices? Do they have access to healthy food and environments? Can they afford the care they need?
It's about those broader social determinants of health that we often overlook.
Absolutely. Two people could have the same healthcare plan, but if one lives in a neighborhood with no grocery stores and the other one has access to fresh produce and safe places to exercise,
their actual capability to be healthy is totally different, even if they have the same access to doctors and hospitals on paper.
Exactly. So a capability approach would push us to think beyond just healthcare systems.
And look at those upstream factors that influence health, like housing, education, even social connection.
Right. It's about creating a society where everyone has the opportunity to live a long and healthy life, not just providing medical interventions after someone gets sick.
It's about prevention, early intervention, and creating the conditions for people to thrive.
Exactly. And that's a much more holistic and, I would argue, more just approach to healthcare.
Absolutely. It feels like Sen's work is giving us a whole new language to even talk about these issues.
It is, and a new way to measure progress. Are we moving towards a world where everyone has the genuine capability to be healthy? That's the question we should be asking.
I love that. So as we wrap up this deep dive into Amartya Sen's work, what's the one thing you hope our listeners will take away from this conversation?
I hope they'll walk away questioning those traditional ideas about equality, that it's just about redistributing resources or making sure everyone has the same opportunities in theory.
When it's really about so much more than that.
It's about recognizing the diversity of human needs and capabilities and creating a world where everyone has the freedom and the support to live a life that they value.
It's about moving beyond equality as a finish line and seeing it as an ongoing process.
Beautifully put. A process of constantly striving to create a more just and equitable world for everyone.
Well said. A huge thank you to our expert for joining us today and for sharing your insights on Sen's work.
It was my pleasure. Always happy to talk about Sen.
And to our listeners, we leave you with this. What capability, if you could ensure everyone in the world had an equal opportunity to develop it, would you choose? What would a world where everyone had that capability look like? Let us know. And until next time, keep diving deeper.